So let's start here. Why don't you introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your story, like kind of you coming up as an athlete, where maybe you coached then, where you coach now, and then how we first became to where we were working together.
Oh, okay. Jinks Arnold, assistant football coach here at Hope College, special teams coordinator and cornerbacks coach. Originally from Illinois, the Naperville, Romeoville area, so the suburbs of Chicago, and prepped at Plainfield North High School, right? So where back in the day, volleyball was pretty good,
Uh
right?
huh.
And right? And then now it's pretty big with all the other sports with track and field. I think our track coaches like the Hair to Feed the Cats program, like a speed program thing like that. So it's pretty legit. And then I started coaching high school football after I graduated from Rockford College, small Division III school in Rockford, Illinois. Uh, and coached high school football in Rockford at Jefferson High School, then moved on to South Elgin as an assistant football coach at South Elgin. And then that's when I got the phone call to move up to Michigan to coach at Ferris State. Go Bulldogs,
Woo woo, go
right?
Bulldogs!
Uh,
We've both been coaches at Ferris State, and
oh,
Big
yes.
Rapids is my official home address still to this day.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Big Rapids is Big Rapids,
That's right.
you know?
20 years, man. I've been there 20 years.
Oh yeah, I love that. So I go up and visit sometimes. But yeah, that's why I started coaching college ball, and I was there for quite some time. And then COVID came around, and COVID is COVID,
Hmm.
right? We don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. And then I took the
Hold on, Jinx. We got to talk, like, just for the people who don't know, Ferris State football is one of the best Division II football programs in the country. You
hands
are
down,
part of, hands down, you are part of the base of the build. I don't remember when they've won three of the last four national championships, correct? But even before
correct.
that, they were in the top, whatever. So you were part of the building of that base. Your head coach, Tony Anise, is, I
Phenomenal.
mean, he's, yeah, I'm definitely going to pick your brain on that, man. But um, I think we have to just note that. Do you want to? We'll come back to Ferris, but I just needed to make that note so we didn't forget that, because not
Yes, yeah,
everybody knows. Not
Ferris.
everybody knows.
Yeah, spring of 17 is when I got to Ferris State.
Okay.
Yeah, spring of 17 and was there up until 2020 COVID. And then took a leap of faith, decided I wanted to give the head coaching thing a try at the high school level. And just went out to Benton Harbor and with the challenges there.
Yep.
Um, we had a great time at Benton Harbor for about a year, a little under a year, and I've learned so much there to where it taught me how to be a better coach, how to understand our student athletes a little better, be patient with those guys, because coaching college football is different than going to a environment and community as like Benton Harbor,
Yep.
where you need to be a little more hands-on,
Yep.
right? After Benton Harbor again, ended up here at Hope College with a stop at Comstock Park in between.
Oh, okay.
Comstock
Wait,
Park, I
so
did.
Kendra, the principal, wait, is she at Comstock Park?
Yes,
I love
yes,
Kendra.
yep.
I've
So
I've,
that's
I've
our.
worked with their teaching staff a
Mhm.
couple times.
So that's the Comstock Park connection through Ferris State.
Yeah. So
So I
Kendra would
would
have been
say
coaching basketball at Ferris before she was at Comstock Park. So you knew her from Ferris, yeah?
correct.
That's awesome. I love me
Yeah.
some Kendra.
So it's oh, she's the best. I
Yep.
can't speak highly enough about her. She's the best. She definitely took on the challenge herself,
Yep.
and she's rocking it. She's rocking it. So I appreciate her for calling me and bringing me into Comstock Park, and we worked together, and we did a lot of good things together as well
That's
before I
good.
came over to Hope. So, yep.
That's exciting. So, okay. So tell the people how we met.
And then, so we met through the coaches credentialing program. right? And it was brought to me here by our administration here at Hope College. And they offered me, they said, hey, we have a program we think that you would fit well for. And I was all about it. To get away from here for a few days and just learn and dive into things outside of X's and O's. And that was the biggest thing for me was we're going to learn and become a better coach outside of the X's and O's of football, right? It was more for me like, okay, how do I build better relationships, right? How do I go into a conversation? I had too many conversations with my position group yesterday. I think before taking the course that I did last year, those conversations would have came off a little more like, oh my God, do I really want to do this? It felt like it was forced. But yesterday when I had those conversations, it was just like genuine and we had a great time. 2 minutes turned into 5 minutes with guys. 5 minutes turned into 20 minutes. So that course really like it was a inner look for me as a coach on how are you going to approach tough situations? How can you keep like your door open? Everyone, quote unquote, says, I have an open door policy, right? That's a quote just to make themselves sound good. But here at Hope, that's what we're about. Our door is always open. And taking the course really, like I really dove into having an open door policy now, to the point where as long as you got coach in front of it, you can call me anything. Coach Arnold, Coach Jinks, right? And then I respect you, you respect me. And that's just kind of how it is. But that was the biggest thing. So that's how we met. And I was really, really loving the feedback loop when I saw the picture on the screen last year. I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
You
What
you
is
you you
this?
brought it up to me like in the we were in Anaheim, California. We're both like honestly, I mean, a couple hours apart, right? But we end up meeting in Anaheim, California, right? That's
Hmm.
because we're in the second cohort. And I remember after that first day, either it was at breakfast the next day of the opening or at some point you kind of pulled me aside and you're like, hey, you're like, I want to talk about this feedback loop thing. And we had a pretty good conversation. I was like, yes, let's go. So can you tell me of the coach? So for people who don't know, the coach credentialing program, we have it in a couple of different formats now. We have a fully online version we're doing our best to try to replicate some of that in-person stuff, but it's hard, right? Because that
Hmm.
in-person opening is really it's pretty deep. And then we have a closing that not everybody could make it that for that second cohort, but we had a great time there. You were there, man. That was awesome,
Yes.
right? And so we really tried not only just to give you access to content and insightful thought, but we try to connect you with other coaches. And
Correct.
I just wonder, just for the whole, and it's a 6 month program. It's not easy. Like you had to do a
No.
lot to gain the credential, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
can you talk about just like maybe your top, other than that feedback loop thing? And I do want to dive into that, but like, what are some of the things that you were like, well, that moment or that particular, you know, course or session or whatever? What are some of the things that stood out to you about any of it? Not
Um,
even just the content, like the connection with other coaches too.
um, One of the things were I think it was Mindful Mondays, I believe, right?
Celia, that's her brainchild. Yeah.
Right. So it was like one of the books would Think Like a Monk. Okay. And I refer back to it and I'm like, monks are so legit that a lot of people don't really know, right? Where they can just get deep into themselves and just block out everything else. Right. So that was one thing I really looked forward to on Monday, starting the week out and just get out of your office or get to your Zen spot, right? And just read through the content and then just have a few minutes of just meditation and just sit there and go through the paperwork like that. So that
I
was
gotta
one
tell
thing.
hold on, I got to tell everybody what Mindful Monday is because it sounds like woohoo. Like there's so much of this program. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it specifically, Jinx, because like, you coach football, right? And I think there's just this I don't know, sometimes there's a reluctance for male coaches, especially coaches coaching males, like this stuff is like woohoo, or I don't need. And so just for the people, Mindful Monday is like it's just something we do every other Monday, and it's on the Monday. So we do, after you do the in-person, there's a live call, and then the next week a self-paced unit, and then live call, self-paced, right? On the self-paced weeks, there was always a Mindful Monday, and it was meant to be like a really short and sweet way for coaches to just take a pause and do something for themselves. You know, when you're in an airplane, they say put your own oxygen mask on first, but as coaches, it's
Correct.
easy for us to not do that. Mindful Monday is Celia just collected a whole bunch of things to help coaches do that, but have it be short and sweet.
Hmm.
And I
Yes.
love
So
that you just pulled that out. That's so cool.
yeah, that was the one for me. And then I use it today. And I started it in the spring, where I just do a check-in with the players. Right. And I think Lauren Doc was talking about it. Just on Monday, you have one thing, right? So on Monday, I say, hey guys, what's the word of the week? And I pick one guy from the defensive back room, right? And he say, Coach, this week, so last week, this is our second week of spring ball. Last week, the word was confidence, right? So I picked one guy. He said, yo, Coach, word is confidence. I'm like, all right, cool. All week, we're going to talk about confidence, right? And then so on Tuesday, I come out and I say, hey, what technique are we most confident in using and really polishing up today? So all week, and then so I asked one of the other players, hey, what technique are we focused on this week? Right. So that's Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we have like a wacky Wednesday. I pick one guy to tell as many jokes as possible until the whole group starts to laugh. It's so embarrassing, right? It's crazy, but they're like, I don't have any more jokes. I'm like, dude, I'm going to tell you on Monday that you're the guy for Wednesday. So you may want to go buy a dad's joke book.
That's
Right?
awesome. So
So
like they're like legit, they get up as stand up comedians and like just tell jokes.
yeah, so
That's
before
amazing.
practice, pre-practice, we're just in a circle, right? And we have about 5, 10 minutes to get together and just talk, right? Half the time, other coaches just probably think, okay, he's over there talking about the practice plan and things like that. No, we're over there cracking jokes, right? We're over there just having a grand old time. So that was that Thursday night, for practice is something else, right? And then on Friday is feedback Friday, right? I want to know how your week went. I want to know what you're looking most forward to. Outside of the game tomorrow on Saturday, what are you looking most forward to this week? And we just asked 3 questions, right?
That's fun.
And I have the guys pick the 3 questions, and we all go around and answer them.
Wow. And was that something you're just doing this spring, or did you also get to do a version of that in the fall?
I started it in the fall,
How
and
how did that change your play? Like what are some of the things that you noticed
um,
about this with your
at
guys?
the at the end of practice after the week, so on that Friday when we did the feedback thing, like you can really see other guys holding their peers accountable. Right. So let's say I pick Johnny over here. He said, hey, coach, I really want to focus on my back paddle today. Right. Just throwing one out. Okay. My buddy Joey would say, hey, you never use your back pedal technique today. You just got right into crossover run. Like you have to start, if you're going to say we're going to focus on pedal, let's focus on it. So those guys start holding. Like, I was
No
like,
kidding.
oh, yeah, here we go. And then after the season, we have exit interviews. And I asked the 3 questions. Hey, what's one thing, we can change? One thing we need to get rid of, right? And
Yep.
then one thing you guys think was pretty good that we should keep. So we're keeping it, change it, get rid of it. Every guy was like, hey, I think we should keep the weekly. I was like, okay. They're like, we love it. We love the fact, hey, can we not do any drills for pre-practice? And we just circle and talk up. It's a good time for us to catch up with each other. Before year one, when I first got here to Hope College, I didn't do any of that. Right. Pre-practice, I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. Okay, let's start running through drills. Now it's all X's and O's pre-practice. Honestly, I really didn't know my group as well as I do my new group. Right. So I just think it's a little different, and those guys love it. They welcome each other in, right? And not the two our group's horn, but I think we're probably the hardest working group on the team right now.
Isn't that
So,
that's wow. I was just listening to a conversation that Simon Sinek had with a former colonel in the military. Dee Dee Halfhill is her name. And they were talking about loneliness. And
mm,
it's a word that if you ask your guys if they're lonely, they're never going to say yes. And it's not even like they're being dishonest. I think all of us would answer the same thing, but
mhm,
they talk about, I've said this before, just because of my consumption of Brene Brown's work and whatever. Loneliness shows up as a lot of different things. It shows up as exhaustion, and by the way, it's a lot more accepted for us to be like, I'm exhausted, right?
mhm,
So often though, it's not. It's loneliness. So it's so interesting. You were task oriented in that first year, in your pre-practice stuff, and
mhm.
you just said we don't do that anymore. You're basically connecting them in a way that now you just said, I don't know if this is like tooting our own, but like I think we're the hardest working position group. And you stopped doing that like you're just connecting. You're just staving off loneliness
Yeah.
and you're feeding that. And now in practice, we're getting this really hard work and just empowering accountability from player to player. I think that is right there. That's why I do what I do. Like that actually is literally, I can't tell you how fulfilling that is because
Yeah.
I don't know those guys. I'd see them on the street. They wouldn't know me. I wouldn't know them, but their lives were impacted because you took care in growing yourself and then weren't afraid to say, no, I'm going to do this. And then
Mhm.
that's, come on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the biggest thing, leaving North Carolina at the end. It's like, okay, you
So
just
North
went through
Carolina,
six.
the closing circle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Closing circle, North Carolina. Yep. You can leave after 6 months and just go through everything and just say, okay, I did that, whatever. Right. Or you could take it and say, I want to take at least 3 to 5 things away from it that I'm going to incorporate for the rest of my whatever, like outside of coaching into your regular life, right? Just impacting others. So that was one thing I focused on, right?
Love it.
What can I take from here and just use it every day, you know? So that was like after the closing, that was my biggest thing, right?
Man, the closing circle was fun though. Like I just remember that closing circle. We had a small group because we only had, I mean, it was a different setup and we were in different parts of the country and it was in late May, early June, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in a group circle and it sounds so woohoo, but like as you're in it, you're in this circle with people you don't know, and we're all in this really tight circle, kind of
Yeah.
closing it out, fighting back I'm fighting back tears every time I'm in those things, man. Yeah, at any point are you thinking, what the heck am I doing here? Like this is insane.
Yeah.
You were the only
Oh,
football
yeah.
coach in the room, right?
Only football coach in the room. Only football coach. The other football they would consider soccer.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Right.
soccer coaches. Yeah.
A lot of soccer coaches, but yes, only football coach there. And I've learned so much. Honestly, I had to present to the team about leadership. So we do this great leadership for throughout the winter all the way into the end of spring ball. So we took that from Tony Anise, right? So Ferris State did it last year. And then so we kind of incorporated it here at Hope College. Our head coach he's pretty legit. I love him, right? Coach Sturzman, Peter Sturzman. So he incorporated it and he went first. And he just kind of talked about leadership in the whole. But one thing I took away from the credentialing course was the billboard, your vision. Okay. So
Let's
so
hear it.
So we were talking, and my biggest thing was be a leader, but how are you going to bring others along with you? Right. So we kind of talked about that, and I went on how there's different leaders on every team, right? So you got your most competitive guy, you got your locker room leader, right? You have your social leader. So we kind of went down that hole, and I'm like, hey, every guy on the team can be a leader. Okay. It's just which one are you? You know, you're not going to be the performance leader, right? Those are the Michael Jordans, your Kobe Bryants, those type of guys, right? The good book, Relentless, right? So those are those guys, okay? There's a guy that's not in that book, and we all know why. But, you know, because he's not a performance guy, he's more of that team-based guy where he's going to pass the ball for the last shot and take credit that he set his teammate up for that. That's a leader, right? But everyone can't be the performance guy. So we went down that hole. And then as I got to the end of it, you know, I said, hey, you know, your vision, okay, for yourself, for the team, whatever it is, okay, as I'm riding down the highway, like you should, that's how big your vision should be, right? It should be as big as a billboard. So I had it up on the screen and I said, hey, this is my billboard. You know, and I told him I got it on my screensaver, and I'm all about inspiring others, loving players, all of my players outside of my group, um, connect, and you know, things like that. And I'm all about developing everyone. So that's my build, and that was a part of my coach's philosophy at the end after the closing as well, right? So, but yeah, it's on my screensaver. And I still go through it, you know. So I don't know. There it is,
That's
right?
awesome.
So you know, it's pretty cool. But guys, look at it like you don't have your family up there. I'm like, no, this is what I live by right there for everybody. I want to
For everybody.
inspire others. I'm gonna love you up. I'm gonna connect with you, and then we're gonna develop you to be a great person on and off the field. So, so that was our leadership talk, right? So I took part of what I've learned with you all, and then just poured it right into these guys, right? So
That's so freaking cool. Jinx, man. That like I got goosebumps. Like that's freaking cool. So
yeah,
thanks for sharing that.
yeah, no problem, no
That is
problem. I was just like, dude, I was all about it when I was doing the PowerPoint on it. And I said, well, I have to put this in there,
yep. Yeah.
right?
And it's the fact that it's on your phone and it's on like I just that's it's just right there. You see it every day. Because I
Yep.
think that so often, and you've heard me say this before, so often we, work on purpose, mission, and vision, and we do it in a way that like I'll talk to coaches and I'll be like, all right, what's your culture about? And they're like, and they reach for something. They reach for a book or whatever. And I'm like, man, if you have to reach for something, it doesn't exist. And I
Correct.
think, you could just say that in your everyday, like it just like flows, like this is what I'm about. And what I'm about, and you actually made a point to say it, it so jives. It's connected to what my head coach is about. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference, because if you got to reach for something, it doesn't exist. If
Yeah.
it's not stained, first of all, it's not stained on your brain. There's no possible way you can pass it on to anybody. You got to make it portable, right? So
Right.
I freaking love that so much. So what what is something that surprised you about going through that credentialing program?
I would say as we went on, so at the beginning, you're like, all right, cookie cutter, right? Here's the cookie cutter stuff. So let's see what it's really about. So as you go on, right? Because at the beginning, it's like you're just breaking the ice, just breaking the ice. And as you start to develop your sculpture, your ice sculpture, however you want it, uh, you just have to continue to dig in. And but you have to be like all in. So you can't have one foot out, one foot in. Because at the beginning, you're like, okay, kind of cookie cutter, right? A lot of people think they know it all and things like that. But as you dive all in for what you want it to be, right? So that was the biggest thing for me, is just like, I'm going to focus in and dive in for what I want to take out of it and not what anyone else thinks. So When you start talking to like other coaches, like, what are you guys doing? It's not about X's and O's and things like that. Well, why are you doing it? How are you getting better as a football coach if you're not talking about cover three, cover two, and things like that? You know, I'm like, I'm in it for me. So that was one of the biggest things for me.
I love that answer so much. It's so funny. Part of the design of the program, and there's research being run alongside of it, as you know. Um, Part of the design is exactly if we go at it too hard with how much your self story and your self leadership matters to who you are as a coach, literally in your day to day, will alienate coaches or scare them, for lack of a better word, pretty quickly. And so how we approach it is the order of how we do things in the core competencies, which are team culture, relational skills, and self leadership. The order is very important because of everything you just said. And so
Mm-hmm.
we start with team culture because I think coaches, I think there's a misunderstanding of team culture. That's why it's a passion of mine.
Yep.
And I want to bring it to coaches in a way that feels it's intangible, and I want to make it more tangible for coaches. But also,
Mm-hmm.
then we dive into Dr. Lauren McHenry, who you've already mentioned. She's a sports psychologist. Her entire dissertation was on the coach athlete relationship. And so she dives
Correct.
into relational skills. But if we start with relational skills, there's so often this attitude in coaching that players these days,
Yep.
right? And
Big
and
time.
and we dispel that pretty quickly. Yeah, players these days, but like coaches these days, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not coach's fault. We don't have systemized way of training coaches, which is what we're trying to create, right? With the coach
Mm-hmm.
credentialing program. And then, but where does it all land? The heart of the target is self leadership. But if
Yep.
we start there, we're never going to get the coaches. You know it, right? But you just kind of alluded to it. Like that really is at the heart of everything. We just got to get you there before we can really pull out of you what needs to where you have to realize it on your own. It has to be subtle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I think I was maybe one of the only assistant coaches there. I think it was a handful of assistant coaches and more head coaches,
I would say
right?
you're right. I don't remember the exact breakdown, but it was definitely more head coach heavy. Yes.
Yes. So for me, I was like, all right, team culture, I have nothing to do with that. Like in the position that I'm in, I'm all in for it. But sheesh, these guys can take that. I was more relational and like the self leadership, like just get yourself up, right? Stop procrastinating, putting things off to the back end and just do it now. If you can get it done in 5 minutes, do it in 5 minutes and then move on to the next task.
Yep.
So that was one of the bigger things, and I'm ready whenever my time comes, to mold my team culture up as well.
Do you have a vision now for how you'll build that? That's different than maybe you had before the coach credential. When you're a head coach again.
I do. I do. And I think I want to start with more player led than anything. But
Mhm.
for me to come in and just kind of, just start pouring the water in the jug with all the holes in it, the hole at the bottom of the jug. And as long as I just keep pouring, right? Pouring into the guys, pouring into the athletes, right? I think that they're going to take it and pour into the jug as well. And as long as we just keep pouring into it, right? That hole at the bottom of the jug it'll leak, but not as big as it was before.
Well,
So
it'll
you
keep
just have to
repelling
keep
you.
pouring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so I remember early on, I feel like we were talking about having some hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how that, I mean, we spend a lot of time on hard conversations and giving and
Oh yeah.
receiving feedback in the group because coaching is conflict, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day. Um, what how did that program help with that? Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Um, yes, I can. So before, I was okay with hard conversations, but not the best. I tried to avoid it until it was time to. Like, I think that should be for most people, right? But afterwards, it's not, I took it as like jot little things down so you can have talking points and you can have that hard conversation, make it a little easier now, right? Um, I think instead of sitting across from someone, right? How about hey, let's go to lunch and I'll sit diagonal and or right next to you and then have a notebook out and say, hey, here are some talking points. What do you think? Right. So with our defensive coordinator here, even when I talk to the AD, which is coming up here in the next week, right? You don't know. Like it's gonna be a blind conversation, but you know, I already think it's gonna be a tough conversation and something I'm not looking forward to. So I'm just gonna jot down notes and things like that. So just from the course, we kind of talked about making those tough conversations a little easier, and that was the biggest thing. Like, I'm not gonna go in closed off, right? Because you go in closed off like you have that feedback meeting from the defensive coordinator and you screwed up, right? Or the year was rough. Just go in open, kind of crack a joke, something like that. See where his level is and things like that. And then just trying to gauge the room, right? Get that temperature of the room right away.
Yep.
If we go in closed off, it's not going to be good. I think we kind of did a role play when we did the role play, and I had to go into the head coach's room and just kind of talk about, hey, this is what the athlete is doing, right? I had a tough conversation with the athlete, and he's telling me stuff about what the head coach is doing as a role play. And I go in, and the first time I went in on the head coach, like, hey, this is what's happening. And he's like, well,
This
if you're
was
not on
so
my
fun.
page,
This was such a fun thing. I forgot about this. Yes, we totally role played this.
yeah, so that was fun, but it taught me a lot, right? Because my tone going in the first time, right, it fired the head coach up, which got me fired at the end of the role play. And then after the Dr. Lauren gave me some tips and bits. How about you come in a little softer? Ask a few questions, almost like third person.
Yeah.
And I did not get fired after the second time around. So I think just those tough conversations, you have to find a way to kind of like cool off the room, cool that temperature in the room,
Yep.
right? And
I
that
mean,
was the biggest thing for me.
airline pilots do like simulators. Why don't we as coaches? I forgot that you got fired in the first role play. That's so funny.
Oh my God, yes.
That was hilarious. And we talk about having curiosity, right? And I think that is, I mean, it's just woven through every part of that answer. And I think it's just a game changer. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
true of your personal life, true of your work life, whatever you do in the world. Um, what's the hardest part of coaching right now in this climate for you?
Um, I think on our level right now, it's trickling down to us that when you turn the TV on, you're seeing athletes and they're getting paid for their athletic ability, right? And now you got like small schools like ourselves. It's like I have to talk to them about being an athlete, being a student, but then they're like, hey, I want to transfer because I need to see what's the best for me out there.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to talk them out of transferring and want them to stay because they feel like, yeah, I'm good here, but I see other people. I need to at least help my family out and at least get paid now, even if it's $5,000 a month, right? Uh, so it's almost like for us, we're everything built in one, right? Where there's social worker, where there's psychologists and things like that. And we could say, hey, I have a guy for you. Like, how about you go talk to the team site? They don't want to talk to the team site. They want to talk to you and they want that answer now.
Yep.
And I think nowadays, if we don't have the right answer for guys now, you don't know if you push them away or things like that. So I think the hardest part right now is just trying to really connect with the guys
Yep.
and seeing where they are. You know, can we retain them? Right? Like we're recruiting our own roster. You know, like we
Yep.
have to recruit the guys that's already a part of the team, and that's the hardest part right now.
Like it never stops. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the same as before NIL and transfer portal and how inundated they are with media. I think it's a really uphill battle. And it's like there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket. And I think that can feel exhausting to coaches
Mm-hmm.
because you said you have to do all these things. And when did you graduate from coaching school? Like there isn't one, right? This is, we have a 6 month program where we're trying to do a lot in that program, but I think in the future, I think the vision is I mean, we would never let a teacher in a classroom without a license
Right.
with coaches every day.
Right.
And the job is only getting more complex.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what we exist to try to help coaches with exactly that, because you're not going to get a 4 year degree in sports psychology before you coach. It's just
Right.
not that kind of, you're not. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just doesn't happen. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get into coaching? Like that's the key. That's the key thing right there. How did you get to Hope? Oh my God. How did you start at Ferris? Why did you leave Ferris? Right? Things like that. They're legit. How did you get there? Right? I tell guys, build relationships. Right?
Yep.
There's not a there's not a degree to say you're a college football coach or you're a high school football coach. I got to Ferris State because I played for Tony Anise at Grand Rapids Community College. Right? I got to Comstock Park because the relationship I built with Kendra while at Ferris State, and she became the principal at Comstock Park School District. You know, so it's things like that, and people bring you along. And I always say, it's not always about like who you know. Yeah, you should know people, but it's about who you know and how do they know you,
Ooh, that's
right?
good.
Like who you know and how do they know you is the big thing, right? Um, so yes, you can be a great coach, right? X's and O guy, great. But if you're just a slap, right? You're one of those slap dicks just hanging out and your integrity is all jacked up and you're doing this on the field. And as soon as you get off the field, you're preaching, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And you get off the field and you go do it. You
Yep.
know, it's like, come on now. Come
Nope.
on. Right. So it's about who you know and how do they know you and do they have your back? Right. I always tell guys like, hey, if I got you, I got you. Hey, I'll put my job on the line for you if you do the same for me.
That's fun. That's good.
You
I
know,
love that. So tell me your favorite that we can air Tony Anise story. Like, what's something that you take from him, or I'll let you take that wherever you will, just as long as he would be okay with it.
um, no, the best thing about him. So my second word on my billboard is love. Right. And one thing he taught us, and he preaches it now, but at the community college, Grand Rapids Community College, when I played for him, um, he wasn't afraid to say love. Hey, I love you guys, right? So you get all these macho man Randy Savage coaches, football coaches, hockey, whatever it is. Okay, uh, they're afraid of the word love, right? And I think you can build your culture on the word love. You know, so that the biggest thing is that's what he's saying. You say, hey man, I love you, right? He's like, hey, when we get off the phone, like he came and visited us the other week. And we hugged here at Hope, and he's like, hey, see you later, man. Love you. Right. So he's open arms and things like that. But it's a great story is he think he still has it. Right. So he so He would try to run the 40 against any coach, right? He's like, let's race, let's race. So he tried to run 40 against coaches, right? But he's pretty legit in pickleball. Okay.
Oh,
So back in 2018, he would make his, I think he still does it today. So 2018, 19, we had at least 1 hour in our day to either A, go run on the treadmill or go to the weight room, or B, go play pickleball with
hold
him.
on. He built that into the schedule for the coaching staff. Like you had
Yes,
to take this hour.
you had to take an hour to go work out and focus on your health, your physical health.
That's fantastic.
Okay. And that was one thing I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's
So we all
great.
played pickleball. And I must say, if
Wait, did
you
you do
want
this at
Tony
the
and Niece
racket
to get,
facility at Ferris?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
it was right there in the, oh crap, in the rubber room.
Oh, you did it
Remember
in
the
the rubber
rubber
room.
room?
Oh God, yes. Of course I remember the rubber room. Spent a lot of time in the rubber room. It was 104 degrees in the summer for volleyball camp in that rubber room. It's a
Yes.
terrible room.
So we were
Terrible.
just so bad. And so we're playing pickleball. He had the net, like he had
No way.
so much stuff. And he's like, all right, we're playing pickleball. Right. So he would just bust in the defensive meeting room and say, get up, let's go play pickleball. You
What?
know, yeah, if you want to get yelled at by Tony and Niece outside of football, play pickleball with them.
No way. You
Oh,
know
yes,
they got massive pickleball courts. They built like a whole slew of them outside the middle school in Big Rapids.
mhm,
They now they have it at the indoor tennis and racket facility right down the road from the sports complex. They
yes,
have a whole bunch of pickleball courts there too now. I wonder
yeah,
if he's in the scene. I
I'm
can't imagine
sure.
showing up and Tony's yelling at me about because I'm not very good. That's
Oh my
amazing.
God. Yeah, he's like competitive in everything. And pickleball is one. Right. Pickleball is one. And it's like, I'm like, dude, I've never played this. He's like, oh my God, you suck.
Were you his partner and he's yelling at
Yes,
you? Oh, that's
yes.
even better.
He's like, move. It was great. I've since then never played.
That's fun.
No.
So when they remodeled the sports complex, did they lose the pickleball rubber room court?
Yes,
They did.
I believe so.
That rubber room needed to be. That was so
Woo,
bad.
the rubber room. Yeah,
I have so
that
many
rubber room
memories in
was
that
rough.
terrible, terrible facility. The facility there now is amazing. You've been back, right? You've seen like the
Yes.
volleyball arenas. Now
Mhm.
there was a racket, but like the weight room before was like, how are we like one of the best football teams in the country? And the weight room's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, it was, nobody would believe the facilities there with
No
how
one.
good like volleyball, football, basketball, like it was. And
Mhm.
now they're legit, but
Yeah, it like the weight room we call it the Apollo Creed style weight,
100%. That's
like
perfect.
off of
Yes.
Rocky.
Yes. That's exactly it.
That's
And it
it,
couldn't fit
right?
like it probably couldn't even fit some of the position groups. It was so tiny. Like it was like,
Yeah,
yep, so bad.
you had to break up so many small groups. Oh,
It
it's
takes eight
bad.
hours to run the football team through their lifting because they had to go in groups of seven.
Yeah, yeah,
Terrible.
that was the best. But no, TA, he's a family guy. He's big on loyalty. And he's real big on loyalty, right?
How does he talk about it?
Yeah, here's a great example. The defensive coordinator, Coach Hodges. He's been with Tony and Niece now since Muskegon.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. Hodge was like a young coach coming up, freshman coach, JV guy, and was like in the box and only coached defensive backs for TA at Muskegon and taught like math or whatever. And that was it. Today, I believe from the original staff, I think Coach Hodge is the only guy still there with TA. Outside of his son, Hodge is the only original coach.
You know, we talked, I don't remember if this was before we hit record or during, but I talked about judging, I think that you can be a good coach and not necessarily an awesome leader. I
Hmm.
think you can be both, and I think you can be a good leader and a so-so coach. I I really make the judgment around the coach and leader portion by what your coaching tree looks like.
Yes.
I do know that Tony Anise, his coaching tree looks pretty good. You're part of it, and
Hmm.
and that is why, and he's had massive success on the field. I mean, 3 out of 4 national titles, and we could argue that the one that wasn't a national title, I won't say much. I don't want to get
Yep.
anybody in trouble,
Yep.
but there was an interesting suspension that happened
Yes.
that it coincided with the lack of national championship. That was like,
Hmm.
really weird, but whatever. You can all look that up if you want to.
Right.
But the success of the field is unprecedented, but also his coaching tree is unprecedented, and I think
Hmm.
that that's not always true. And I'll just say a name that everybody can agree is a phenomenal football coach, and Bill Belichick. His coaching tree is a disaster,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, so everything you're talking about, love, loyalty, all those things, man, I think that, I think it's just, and it's so in line with everything that we're trying to bring to coaches in the credential
Hmm.
program. And I think that that is, and I didn't know that. I just know of him. I don't know him like just because he's doing his thing. I just kind of watch him from afar. But every
Yeah.
time I talk to somebody, that's literally like love always comes up. And I think that is everything that we need in coaching right now. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of what coaches are missing. Uh, and honestly, the Hope head coach here, Coach Peter Stursman, those two guys and Tony, so our head coach Stursman and Tony Anise, they're like left hand, right hand,
That's
right?
awesome.
They're like best friends. I think they talk to each other at least. We have 7 days in a week, at least 7 times a week,
Wow.
multiple times. And for me to connect with coaches, like, hey, like let's do it, right? It's like I'm back with, another Tony Anise, right?
That's so cool.
Just on the come up, and we're doing pretty good here at Hope. Just had our best season in history here, so we'll be there, and it's all about love and pouring into the culture here.
It's my that's amazing. That's hey,
That's it.
listen, Jinx, man, I could talk to you all day. I'm gonna hit the end recording on this. But I want to give you a chance. Is there anything else you want to add or say about anything, coaching,
um
program, anything?
no, I think at the end of the day, because not too long ago, right, I hit you up and I was down in a slump, and I'm just like, everyone see the high spirited, right, smile on the face type guy. But at the end of the day, no one's really asking, like, you're always gonna cover up I'm doing good, right? When someone say, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? But no one really, they only want the good answer. I think honestly, how many people really wants to know, like, how are you really doing? Right? Like, and then are they gonna sit around for that conversation? Like, how are you really doing? Right. So I just say, even though you're in a slump and things like that, try to find someone. I think you gave me the idea, like try to find someone outside of the coaching circle and things
Mhm.
like that just to chat with. No bias or anything like that. And they just give you real, like give it to you raw and things like that. Because there's times in this profession where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yep.
The pay sucks half the time, right? And what am I getting out of it? Things like that. So I think you just have to find your middle ground and just remember why you do it. And you have to go back to what your vision is and what your billboard would say once you're done
Yep.
impacting those young Thundercats.
Man, I love
So,
that. It's one of those things. When you reached out to me, it was kind of like small talk for a while, but it was out of the blue. And so it finally
uh-huh.
took, finally you came up and you're like, yo, like this is happening. And I remember like you didn't even come right out and you were like, yeah, I'm doing good. And I was like, not
Yeah.
sure. And this is all via text, right? But I felt really happy that you were able to reach out in that time. And we were just kind of went back and forth. And at least if nothing else, you didn't feel so like by yourself, because that's coaches, the power of Me Too, like meaning, man, I feel exactly like you're feeling right now is
Mhm.
immense. And just you having an avenue to reach out to somebody who can say, yeah, no, I just had the same conversation like a week ago. You're not alone, man. And
Yeah.
here's some things like, I think that we think with our coach credentialing program, and it's kind of rebranded now. It's the TLC Institute, which literally stands for Tree, Lauren, and Celia, right?
Yeah.
Not because of anything else. We just like the TLC Institute. Like it sounded good, and nobody could hit us for copyright because it's our names, right?
Correct.
So, but we truly believe that whether it's us or somebody else that you met in the program, just being able to give coaches a way to not feel so isolated in those
Yeah.
moments like you were feeling in that to me is worthy of the whole thing. If that's all we
Mhm.
did and you didn't get anything out of the content, and I know that that's not the case, but even if you didn't, if you only had the ability to reach out when when you're just kind of like, man, I feel like I'm hitting my head against a wall, man, that's a huge thing. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you reached out when you did, and found it at least a little bit helpful, or at least a little bit seen. Honestly, that's what we're all looking for, because it's a hard it's a hard time to be a coach right now. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. And it's a great profession, but it's also really hard. And
Yeah.
so,
It's tough.
yeah,
It's
I
tough.
just, man, I appreciate you. That's all. And I
Yeah.
appreciate
No.
this hour. Like, this is
Yeah.
fun.
No. I appreciate the hour. I was looking forward to it.
Me too,
Right.
man.
The guys were like, "Hey, we're going to lunch." I'm like, "Yeah, not me."
I love it. I love it. Hey, you know what?
Not
In
me.
anytime you feel like I need a pat on the back or I need somebody to kick me in the pants, whatever it is, like I'm in.
Mhm.
Like, reach out to any of
Yeah.
us. Like at
Sounds
all times.
good.
I
I'm
appreciate
in.
it.